This is All About Home Construction. And here's your hosts, Terry Cannell-Beck and Randy Blake.
That's right. Good morning, Randy.
Morning, Terry, and everybody out there. How y'all doing?
It's a lovely Saturday morning, buddy. How about you? You having a lovely Saturday morning so far?
Yes, I have.
Well, obviously, you are not in the studio, but we are live this morning, and that means you are at the Rock and Roll Breakfast Kitchen this morning. Is that right?
Yes, I am. We are ready to go.
Nice. Rock and Roll Breakfast Kitchen at the VFW. Breakfast is getting, well, it's 6 minutes past time that you could get there just to eat. So head on over, right?
Yeah, come on.
So, what's on the menu today?
Well, you know, we always have biscuits and gravy, eggs and potatoes, and sausages, bacon. Today we have ham, fried green tomatoes, and pancakes for the youngins.
Nice. Now, when you say ham, are we talking like country ham? What are we talking about here?
Good Night Brothers ham.
Ooh, I love a good country ham for breakfast. Ooh.
Well, me too, especially on a good hot biscuit.
Right.
With some butter on it.
Butter, and then actually, here lately I've been on a jelly fix, so I've been taking the ham off the biscuit, just eating the ham because it's great, and then going with some kind of jelly. Strawberry seems to be my favorite right now.
Well, I have some strawberry, have some grape, and then I got the fruit mix, little pack. So
perfect.
Then I got real butter to go on the pancakes.
Yeah, not that liquid stuff they just like swipe on at some restaurants, right?
No, we try real hard.
So
I'd like to give a shout out to everybody that came to the Italian dinner we had.
Yeah, that
was a success. Thank you all.
That sounded like it turned out really good for you guys. So love it.
Well, you know that's the first dinner I've missed. Long time. Yeah.
So, well, cool. I'm glad, though, that it turned out to be a successful venture, and maybe we'll start to see some more of those, right?
Yeah, well, you know, we're trying to get our menu for a year, and because, you know, we've always done a lot of steaks, and we've always had a good following on that, but we just want to mix it up a little.
That's it.
And so we're trying, you know, like St. Patty's, you know, we'll do fish and chips again. That's a hard meal to put on. And because you don't want to overorder because you can't refreeze that cod back.
Right.
So you don't want to lose it either. So
well, there you go. Well, cool stuff.
So believe it or not, the last fish and chips we had, I sold out within 10 minutes of closing time. So that made me feel great.
It's always a good feeling. So,
and then, you know, we did the steak night. We didn't advertise the 32-ounce ribeye, but, boy, we had a lot of folks come in. And I had to hand cut them for that dinner.
Nice.
And, you know, when a guy eats a 32-ounce steak and he decides to go to church and he got his wife and come back and eat a 12-ounce.
Woo!
And his wife she eat a 12-ounce. And but I guess that's saying something, ain't it?
There you go. I like it. So
I mean, we're in a 50s environment. You know, it is an old building, but it is the home of the VFW.
That's it. Well, and again, you know, you guys are just doing so much service for the community. So, hey, speaking of the VFW, the building itself, how's the sales going for the memorial wall, the bricks?
Pretty good. They did their first order, and they do them in allotments of 10.
Okay.
And I mean, we had a stack of papers out there. I need to send one to you, but they ain't but about 5 left.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
and
it's a matter of time when people fill their stuff out and get it in.
Right.
And have to thank Dana Wallet for drawing out the memorial for us. So now, we can put a name on the brick and know where the location is.
That's awesome. Well, and for those listeners who don't know what we're talking about, the VFW is trying to raise some money to fix up the memorial, and you can participate by having your own piece of the memorial, by putting a brick on in honor of someone. And the cool thing, Randy, is you had mentioned, like, the requirements to be on that brick.
Well, it's just a veteran. Instead of being a veteran of foreign wars, it's any veteran in Watauga County or a past family member. The VFW is basically for veterans of foreign wars. The American Legion is for veterans that help them.
Right.
Okay? And that's what people don't understand. For every combat veteran, there's 10, 12,000 behind them, if not more,
Right.
And so it's just a way to put a family member on the memorial so they have their family members won't ever forget them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So definitely go by the VFW, and again, we've got some links on our Facebook page all about home construction. I'll push that back towards the top after the show this afternoon, so you can get that contact information. So, well, cool stuff. So, well, how's the world of construction going, Randy?
Good.
So,
Doing good. It's construction, and it's not like construction like it used to be. Construction don't move as fast as it was.
right. Well, the weird thing this last couple weeks has been this weather. We've had a lot of rainy days, but we're still really dry. I mean, it's weird. Like, we get a lot of places are rain. You'll get cloud cover, you'll get rain, but not everybody's getting rain. Depends on which mountaintop you're on, it seems like.
Yeah, that's a fact.
But that's got to make it hard to schedule. When you're relying on doing work that revolves around the weather, especially, like, that's got to be tricky because it's like you can't count on one or the other.
Yeah, well, it does, and especially on masons, graders, people like that.
Yeah. So it's been a weird weather year, like I said, and I mean, the ground still seems pretty dry at my house.
Yes, it does. And considering the amount of rain we had,
yeah,
we're supposed to have a big thunderstorm come through today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I wish we just get instead of thunderstorms, get the easy rains, something that will be absorbed. So.
Yeah, I know. I feel like we got a little bit of that the other day, but then, like I said, when I went across the county, it was like, oh, this place didn't, and it's just crazy. So.
Yep.
But, well, hey.
Yesterday afternoon,
yeah.
that heavy thunderstorm that come through.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was a rough one. Thunderstorms and everything. I mean, lightning and all. So, but all right. So I got a listener question for you. In that, that we like to get some listeners on and stuff. And so I was asked this week. This is the question that I was supposed to ask you was, what is your knowledge like? What is it like as far as a do-it-yourself project with redoing a bathroom? Would you lay the pan of the shower yourself? And because a person wants to lay tile, she wants to lay tile in the in the shower and stuff, and she feels like she can. But the question was, what about the pan and the actual pan of the shower? Is that something that you really need to have some experience with, or is that a fairly as easy as laying the tile?
No, because over the years we've tore out more tile bathrooms than anything. And if you're going to use backer board, then you need to seal that backer board with a grout, and fiberglass tape so the water don't go through it. Backer board is actually a porous material. And so if water ever starts through it, it can leak into your walls. It used to be in the day they didn't have anything but drywall for it to go on. So every 10 or 12 years, you had to re-tear it out and put it back.
Mm-hmm.
And but your pan is something that's important, and I would do a little research before you take it on yourself, okay? Because your pan needs to go in with your drain, and it needs to be all sealed in so no water leaks, because once it starts leaking around that pan and you got your tile, Now it's going to be messing with the ceiling downstairs below it.
Right.
We've seen, I've talked to quite a few people about stuff like that, and where we had that happening, and the tile guy says, no, you can't fix it. You got to tear it back out and replace the pan.
Right.
So in some cases, depends on the type of tile, you could be tearing out half the wall up around.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we're just now learning about the carry board.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you have to tape it and everything, but it's costlier the other way, but there's no, if you put it in correctly and tape it in, then you shouldn't have any problems forever, you know.
Right.
Carry board come out around 2007, 8, and you can cut it, you can bend it. They have tape and grout to seal the corners, and then it's got a special drain that goes in the pan itself. So then you cement not cement, but use their product thin set to seal it all up and glue it together.
Right.
They also make that would be a lot easier, but they also make the rubber pans that you can bend and put in place and nail to the walls.
Mm-hmm.
Those are real good too. And but there again, on the drain part of it, do your research to learn how to seal that drain up proper.
Well, and that's my concern, right? Is that it's water. I mean, the pan is the drain, right? It connects to the drain, and so if you're not careful, it only takes one little mistake to not have it sealed right, and you got a big problem on it. That's
it, and making sure that you put a dry pack bed in it. Okay. Yeah. You know, so the water drains where you want it to drain.
Right.
So. And that's important because, colleague, you know, when we did that house down in Burke County, they had a tile guy come in and I didn't have nothing to do with it. He laid the tile in it and he had a hump in the tile, so it was pushing the water into the corner of the shower.
Right.
So it's always going to be standing water in that corner, so that creates mold and mildew.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I like to do that a lot of people won't do is I like to insulate all the walls in the shower.
Right.
And by insulating all the walls in the shower,
it's keeping that condensation, the temperature causing condensation.
Correct. And we find more mold behind those showers than we do anywhere.
Yeah. Makes sense, man.
You got that youngin' that takes that 45-minute hour shower, you know.
Right? Yeah. What? Teenagers don't do that. What are you talking about?
Yeah, they do. You know better than that.
And the bad thing is, I don't know what's worse, boys or girls, because I think they both do it. So, Randy, we'll take our first break. We'll come right back right after this. What do you think?
All right. I'm here.
We'll be right back. Thanks for listening. The Boone VFW Post 7031 is looking at making improvements to their Veterans Memorial Wall, and you can help. Here's Chuck.
We could do engraved bricks to cover the memorial. It's in honor of the veterans who have served and some that have given their all for our country. And that's the one thing that we feel as the VFW that we can do to honor those who have come before and those who are even present today.
But Chuck, what do we have to do to participate?
You don't have to be a war veteran in order to be a part of this memorial. It's just that you served.
What is the cost?
That fee is only $50, but it's a lifetime investment.
If you would like to help participate by honoring a family member, a friend, or a loved one, you can contact the Boone VFW Post 7031 at 828-264-9570. They are on VFW Drive just off of State Farm Road here in Boone. Thank you for all that have served. That's right, all about home construction here on WATA. And again, we want to thank all of our listeners out there, both on the podcast and on WATA. And, Randy, at the Rock and Roll Kitchen over at the VFW this morning, so get on over and get your breakfast. You'll be there till 11 o'clock, right?
Yes, we will. Come on by.
Good stuff, good stuff. Well, So, we love history, obviously, right? Like anyone that listens to our show knows that we're both kind of history nerds in lots of ways. And my kids have this new thing where they're coming up. I guess it's like a new TikTok video thing. I say new; it's been around for a little bit, but they're like, "Oh, so how often do you think about the Roman Empire?" And apparently, that's like a big thing that kids are doing now and asking. And so, my answer is, every time we go out on the road, don't you think about it? Come on. Roman Empire is pretty important, right?
Yeah, it actually went before them.
Right. So that brought up our topic today, and not necessarily just about roads, but more about what the roads are made out of, and that was concrete, right?
Yep, and that was a question I had that I was asked to do on the show, or we were asked, and so concrete's older than what we can imagine. It goes all the way back to 6,500 BC.
Yeah,
that's a long ways, and it's still standing today.
Right.
A lot of the products that we see from Greece, the Egyptians, the Romans.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to find out who. I was reading about it here a few minutes ago, the people that discovered it, and they discovered a lime, and that's how concrete got its start.
Right.
Because when it mixed with water, it got hard.
So here's something though. So often we hear the word cement, we hear the word concrete. And in normal applications, everyday people, we use those interchangeably, but they're really kind of meant for two different things, right? Cement itself is that like chemical binder. It's often like calcium, silicone, aluminum, iron, and things like that. Limestone is where that, again, shells, things like that, chalk. But that's different than the actual concrete. Because concrete itself is you take that cement, you add water and usually some kind of aggregate, and you make like a paste, right? And that's what concrete is, right? Is the mixture of that cement, water, and typically gravel, right? Stone.
Yeah.
So I guess I just wanted to point that out right at the start was, even though we often say, "Oh, I got a concrete driveway, I got a cement driveway," right? Like we use those interchangeably. Technically, they're two different things.
Yes, they are, and different products. Concrete we use for driveways and footers and stuff. We do it by weight, and 2,500 pounds per yard is the strength of it. Okay. 3,000, 4,000, 5,000.
Right.
You take your bridges, that they build in salt water. The concrete can go up to 9,000 psi, and that gets done. So I don't know what they didn't know anything about stuff like that 6,500 years ago.
Right.
But there's stuff still standing today from it.
Well, and to go along with that is, the part of when we get concrete, when we order concrete, again, you're talking about the weight. Another thing we talk about is the slump, and that is, do we want a lot of super wet? I guess in terms of consistency, do you want it wet or dry? Right. And slump is kind of how we would measure that. And so if you are going to say pour a footer, that's going to be a different slump than what you would do for a driveway.
That's right. A lot of times you want your footer concrete to be a little wetter.
Yeah.
So it molds to all the edges and stuff.
Exactly, right? The wetter it is. I mean, think about baking a cake, right? Or you're making breakfast. Think about those pancakes, right? If you add a little too much water, think of how runny those that batter is before it starts to cook, and it's going to fill up the pan. Whereas if you mix it really thick, right, you're going to get a big clump on it. So the idea is to get that sweet spot in between, but that sweet spot depends on what you're actually doing when it comes to concrete.
Well, that's a good analogy, using the pancake batter for that, because that's exactly when you got to talking about slump. And it's like, if you get too much water in it, then it'll weaken the concrete.
Right.
Okay? And there is a formula for the amount of water that you put in it. Same way with the guys laying brick or laying block. They want their mortar to have more water in it for brick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Brick realistically needs to have a 19% moisture in it before you lay it, to keep from drying the mortar out too fast. That's the reason it's running. It's only generally about 3/8 of an inch thick.
Right.
And so if you get it too dry, then when you get to laying your brick, then all of a sudden your brick's not bonding. The only thing making the bond is the weight of the brick itself stacked on top of each other.
Right.
Yeah. And mortar. Now, one thing about mortar is mortar can be removed.
Mm-hmm.
Cement and concrete can't be removed. Now, we tore a chimney down one time, and I said, sure. I took the job to tear it down, and I hit it with a 16-pound sledgehammer, and the only thing it did was tear the face off the brick.
Right.
Because they put it together with cement.
Well, all right. So you've mentioned cement, you've mentioned mortar. I'm gonna throw a grout in for this this next part, and that is the difference between the two, right? So mortar is really just made of cement, sand, and water. Grout, for tiles, is some cement, water, and typically some kind of fine sand. But the cement itself, again, is that limestone, clay, or other materials. So that's why cement and mortar is a little bit different, and they often look the same to the uneducated eye, but there's a lot of difference between. So mortar would be more like concrete equivalent, right? But so you use sand instead of rock, stone, whatever, and I guess that's really what makes it not bind it the same as concrete. And, so I always thought that, like especially when you're building, like you see people use mortar to put in a footer, for instance, and that's what makes that a no-no, right?
Well, we use mortar on our brick, block, and rock. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now we use type S cement for our stucco. So right. Type S is waterproof, and that's because of the type of lime it's used.
Right. So. Yeah,
and that they call lime back in 6500 BC pozzolans, Pozzolans.
Okay.
Broad class of silicon and luminous materials, which in themselves possess no cementous value, but when they're mixed into it, it reacts with water to cause stuff to get hard.
Right. So, yeah, well, and then again, that's the evolution of what we see in this, this concrete itself, right? Is different regions have different materials, right? Limestone, clay is a little bit different in each place, and so that's where we start to see the differences of. Especially today, just like any technology, right? We have concrete mixes today, that can be used for different applications, right? Like there's different types of concrete that we use today. I guess that's where I'm going with that.
Yep.
And look at go buy a bag of Quikrete at the box store. And that is not really quite the same as what you would expect to get off the concrete truck poured out.
Well, all the way back in Crete, the Monon civilization started using slack lime, finely ground, and they put them in their cisterns. And with the slack lime mixed together, it was waterproof, and cisterns are still there today when they laid them, 400 or 500 BC, or didn't lay them, but when they poured them, or however they put them together at that time.
Right.
That's pretty wild because, our concrete we use today has a 50 to 60-year rating.
Mm-hmm.
And can go 100 years. With steel, can go 1,000 years. And we're looking at structures 65 BC still here, and they didn't have any steel then.
See, that's my thing, right? Is okay. So let's just say let's go to the extreme, right? Water. We know that so concrete is porous. We've mentioned that before. Just the way it sets up, water leaches through it. Now, I'm not saying it'll hold water. Obviously, we got things like swimming pools and ponds made out of concrete, but those typically are sealed with something because the concrete itself is porous. And anyway, so when you go to let's go back to the Roman Empire, right? Crete, like you had mentioned. When you get into that region, sometimes submerged concrete and salt water will last a dozen years or something, right? Like it starts to break apart. And then, like you just said, we've got these 2,000-year-old structures from Rome that are still strong. And I was reading a really interesting study from a group out of Utah, one of the universities. I think it was Utah University. And it was just talking about, like, why can we have a 2,000-year-old concrete structure that's still standing in the water, and then we got this 20-year-old bridge that's falling apart?
Yeah. Well, if you notice the orange lines on around these bridge columns and stuff,
yep,
it's actually not the concrete failing. What it is the moisture is wicking into the concrete and getting into the rebar. And the old rebar, wasn't Teflon coated. If you see any, now they use Teflon coated rebar. It doesn't make any difference if moisture gets in there. It's not going to make it rust.
Right.
And so when that rebar starts to rust, then it starts to expand. And in the wintertime, with that rust and the water in there, that's the reason you see these blowed out places on the side of these columns.
Yep.
And that one thing that could cause that is when I worked on the bridge construction in 84, 85, somewhere around that time, long time ago. How about that?
Yep.
You had to climb down in those columns and put 1.5-inch blocks to make sure that steel would not get in against the sides of it. And the moisture, that 1.5 inch was used to keep moisture from getting in. All right?
Right.
So us with footers, code at one time told us we only had to be 2 inches away from the edge of the dirt. Now we got to be 3 inches away from the edge of the dirt. That's because concrete, 3,000 concrete is porous. Even though you pour it wet, it will allow so much moisture to go through it.
Sure.
And if you keep it 3 inches off, it should never reach the steel inside.
Makes sense. Right. Well, so to go back to the science of this, of why the 2,000-year-old stuff is lasting and the 20-year-old stuff is not. They originally. So when you go back to Roman concrete, it was volcanic ash, what they called quicklime, which was scientifically is calcium oxide, and then obviously they use volcanic rock. That's where they're at, right? And so this research was really cool because it was talking about modern concrete versus the Roman concrete, in that because of the materials the Romans used, it interacts more with the environment, inert versus not inert, to interact with the environment. So it was really cool because it really this was basically saying it comes down to what was used, right? It comes down to the difference of the limestone today versus what the quicklime and the volcanic ash that they were using versus chalk or ash that we use today.
We don't know how they pulverized that lime.
Right.
We don't know if they had crushed it by hand with other rocks, or did they have a ox with a big round wheel on it?
Yeah.
Stone wheel crushing it,
It's pretty cool.
So we really don't know what they used to do it, or how fine it was, or how big it was either.
Right.
A lot of those areas they didn't have gravel. Okay.
Right.
And you couldn't use gravel out of the ocean, stone out of the ocean, because the salt in it didn't. We use calcium chloride.
Right.
For cold weather, but saltwood is a big main thing about penetrating concrete and breaking it down.
Yep. Well, and that's what this article was kind of saying, was that this dried out salts that the Romans were using, right? Like the salts, because whatever it was, right? Their mixture was different, using a little bit different materials than what we used. The salt interacted with it, with the lime that they were using, and therefore lime leaching was not. It didn't dissolve those calcium hydroxides from the concrete like they do today. And so that's basically the way I'm reading it is like, it's just one of those things that like their mixtures and their materials were slightly different and interacted different with the environment. And then that's why it's lasting. Whereas today we don't replicate that.
No, I thought my uncle was a superintendent for a bridge building company.
Right.
That was one of the questions I asked him years ago about how did they protect the columns on bridges in salt water. And he was also a CB in World War II, so he did a lot of stuff in construction, concrete, stuff like that. And he said they used linseed oil that they mixed in the concrete at first to start protecting,
to get it more
concrete from salt water,
less porous, right?
But eventually it leached out, and once it leached out, then the salt ocean water started eroding the rock. To give you an idea, they're doing the 105 project over here.
Yep.
And the old bridge, you can see the pits in the concrete from the calcium chloride that they spray on it for the wintertime.
Right.
Or the salt that, decades of salt put on the roads because of snow.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows you that it will start to erode it after time, no matter what you use on it. But the new columns today, I don't know exactly what the PSI concrete is, but, they're hollow.
Mm-hmm.
And they put them they put the steel cage in, they put it in the round machine, and they spin it as the concrete goes in. And when the concrete goes in, it compacts itself to the outside. So that makes the fines even finer to the outside, and that's what makes it waterproof.
Right.
I think it's totally wild.
It's cool.
Because they drive them hollow concrete tubes down in the water and then stack another one on top. They do have cables in them.
Right.
So stainless steel cables.
That's cool. Well, let's take another break, and we'll come right back right after this. Thanks for listening to us. Are you ready to level up your home construction game? Obviously, you've subscribed to All About Home Construction. Now we would like to ask you for some support. You can be like Dave, Bill, and Skipper and help support All About Home Construction. The links are in the show notes. That's right, All About Home Construction here on WATA. And again, thanks to all of our listeners out there. And Randy's over at the VFW at the Rock and Roll Kitchen making some lovely breakfast this morning, Randy.
Oh, we've had quite a few people coming in.
Love it. So get on over there till 11 o'clock. Say hello to Randy and get a good breakfast there.
Yeah, come on out. Just me and Dave today.
Nice.
We had a good time. We're having a good time. And like I say, we've had quite a few people. Matter of fact, we had one guy said, if you got something I could eat, he came in at 7:30.
Nice.
And
good stuff.
He eat biscuits and gravy and some eggs. We generally do the eggs right before opening. And he got him some bacon, so
perfect.
And he was gone. He had to be at work at 8 o'clock, so that helped him out too. So.
Love it. So get on over there and get some good breakfast for you. So talking a little bit about concrete on today's show, and again, we've sort of talked about some of the history of concrete and stuff, and it goes back. Romans get the credit for really utilizing concrete, but like you said before, they didn't actually invent concrete; they just kind of perfected it and used it.
Yes, just like we had a show on the brick.
Yeah.
They perfected the brick. Greeks made the brick. Romans perfected it.
Right. So, Well, so here, okay, let's back up a little bit. When we talk about like what, again, sort of going to make concrete, we talked about the difference between cement and concrete. When we make concrete, we're taking this cement, this essentially crushed up limestone and other stuff, right? But then we are taking that and we're adding that into an aggregate. Well, that aggregate is different for different reasons, right?
Yep.
So typically when we say aggregate, in this, I'm talking about like what is aggregate? Essentially, it's the gravel that's in the concrete, and we've all seen that, right? Yeah.
So most of the time we use a half-inch, anywhere from half-inch, 3/8, 3/4 inch gravel mix with sand, and but then when you use a pump mix, you want to use a what they call a pea gravel, around a 3/8 of an inch. So you pump it, you're pumping it in the walls. Okay.
Right.
If you go and do footers, then it's a clean gravel, but it has all the other mixtures in it, like 3/8 and half.
Right.
Sand is so the three parts is cement, sand, and gravel.
Right.
And generally it's 1 part cement, 2 gravel, 3 sand. That's a mixture on it that we've been taught for us to be the strongest that there is. Mm-hmm. Now, there does come a time, sometimes water, more is not better, okay? Mm-hmm. And to give you an idea, you would think more concrete, but the ratios change, okay? Like concrete mixing ratio, generally used for small slabs, fence posts, stuff like that, footers. 2,500 is 1 mortar, 2 gravel, 4 sand. Okay.
Right.
Now 3,000 psi goes to 1 cement, 3 sand, 3 gravel. All right. But now let's go to 4,000. We go to one part cement, 2 part gravel, 3 part sand. Okay. So it changes. So 4,500 psi, one cement, 2 sand, 2 gravel. So you're actually increasing the strength of it by backing off a little on your gravel or your sand mixture, okay?
Right.
But let's say if you go 2 concrete, 2 sand, 2 mortar, now you would have a hard mixture that could actually break. How about that?
Right.
So when it comes to cement, more cement's not always better. Because you can make it so strong that it will become brittle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, it goes back to that aggregate. It takes that aggregate to bond it together. And I like that you hit on that 3/4 inch rock or stone rather, because that really every application is different. Having said that, generally, right, that 3/4 inch or in the gravel world, right, that like number 5 or whatever is typically going to be the go-to, I guess, the average mixture that you find in concrete.
Yeah.
And
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, but sort of like what we said is depending on what you're doing, right? A sidewalk could be different than, again, a footer, or certainly is going to be different than what you're pumping into a wall.
Correct. So there's no need to put 4,000 in your wall.
Right.
We use so if you're going to put concrete in your walls, like I said, you want to use the 2,500.
Right.
All know that on mixing cement with sand.
But you also want to put steel in it, okay? Mm-hmm. Because steel or concrete by itself is quite heavy, okay? But once it starts to go, it's gonna fall.
Yeah.
The steel is what keeps that wall from moving, okay? Holds it rigid.
Right. Well, concrete, like we said, it's the materials in concrete are going to cause it to expand and contract. And that's
Right.
what we see that, again, if you've got a driveway, you may, or sidewalks, right? I think sidewalks are really obvious because you're typically, walking or rolling something over those, right? You can see that in the wintertime. I mean, that's what these cracks are. And the cracks are just that shrinkage and expanding and contracting. And then, of course, stuff like sidewalks is like you're obviously not below the frost line. So you've got the ground underneath also doing that. And then they don't always do it the same. And then that's really where these cracks come from.
Well, concrete's compression strength is at 28 days.
Right.
And then they say after 60 years it starts losing its strength. Now, when I went out in 2002, we stopped out at one of the big dams out there on the Columbia River. And, they take core samples still today.
Right.
Of the concrete pour. And when they get, and it's pretty wild because they use a 3-inch bit to drill back in that concrete.
Right.
Excuse me, not a 3-inch bit, but a 3-foot bit. So when they're, it's like a big hole saw. So when they go through that, they pull that big plug out so they can test concrete strength in it.
Right.
And they each through the steel, and they're finding some of the concrete still hadn't cured all the way out in the middle of the dam.
Right. Like the Hoover Dam, it's going to take 100 years to fully dry or cure. It's crazy.
And even with the coolant lines in it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because we didn't even hit on that heat is a destroyer of concrete when you're pouring.
Yep.
And where it's sitting in the truck right there.
Yep. It's terrible. So, Randy, let's take our last break, and then we'll come back and get into that. How about that?
All right.
Sounds good. Are you looking for a sawmill dealership that can provide you with the quality equipment you need to get the job done? Look no further than Blue Ridge Sawmills. We offer the full line of Hudson sawmills and sawmilling equipment, from portable sawmills to skidding winches. At Blue Ridge Sawmills, we understand that every project is different, which is why we offer a wide range of sawmilling services. We can help you from everything from finding the right mill for your farm, hobby, or even your business. We also offer a variety of sawmilling supplies such as blades and debarkers, so you can get everything you need in one place. If you're looking for a sawmill dealership that can provide you with the quality equipment and the service you need, then come to Blue Ridge Sawmills. We're here to help you get the job done. Call or visit our Cana, Virginia store at 276-755-3833 or our Asheboro, North Carolina location at 336-964-8304. That's right, all about home construction here on WATA. And again, thanks to all of our listeners out there, Randy Blake in the Rock and Roll Kitchen at the VFW. So get on over there after the show and go say hello to him. And talking a little bit about concrete this morning, Randy. And I guess it would help if I pressed on. So now maybe. Sorry about that, Randy. I was talking to you and didn't press the button. I was like, wait, I didn't press the right buttons, man. I'm sorry. So,
it might have been. Was you coming over here to the biscuit?
I mean, my mouth was watering, and that's all I could think about. So, yeah.
Oh man, I tell you, I lucked out when I was in Winston-Salem there a couple of months ago when I found those.
Nice.
And I did get that to come up on my Facebook.
Sweet. So Randy's got a cool video we'll try to share out. So.
Yeah, and it's talking about process of making high-strength concrete piers.
Yep.
And it will totally amaze you the amount of concrete that's in it and the amount of steel that's in it.
That's cool.
You would think it would be a monstrosity of a column, but it's not.
Right. That's awesome. Well, again, one thing we didn't even talk about is like the curing of the concrete itself is it's chemical. It's a chemical change, right? So it's kind of cool because you can really feel the heat coming off these things. I mean, I've done many of basements where there's no airflow, and you're in the middle of this basement, finishing it, making it smooth on the top, and you're just pouring sweat because it's about 500 degrees.
Well, there's one thing about it. In the wintertime, we can pour below zero or below freezing, and that concrete will not freeze at night because of the heat that it produces.
Right.
Generally, concrete busts on the second night when it's down below freezing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so we have poured concrete in the past. I mean, we've poured concrete at 20 degrees.
Right.
But then we've come back and we've covered it with plastic, and then we've put hay on top of it
To insulate.
It's insulation blanket.
Yeah.
Now it's a lot different when you go to slabs because you might end up having to rent
Well,
heated blankets.
and the difference being is the surface area, right? The concrete itself still is not freezing, but what it's doing is that heat. Part of that chemical reaction is the heat is releasing the moisture, releasing the water in the mix, right? That's what's drying it off, and so and that's how you're able to finish concrete. Put a finish on top, a slick finish or a broom finish is that like. It's soft on top still. You can walk on it. It's starting to get hard. It's starting to evaporate, but the top is still slick enough or wet enough that you can smooth it down, right? And essentially you're just pushing the gravel back down into the concrete. But I've seen it before on slabs where it gets below freezing and the water on top is frozen. In other words, you come out, it'll be like ice puddles on top. But the concrete itself is still hot. It's weird. It's cool. It's crazy stuff.
The next night's when it'll bust.
Exactly. So
the footer has an advantage. Okay,
well, you're insulated with ground. Yeah, you're insulated with the ground, right?
Yeah, because the average ground temperature is 56 degrees here.
Yeah. So and then like we said, you're also surface area. You don't have a lot of surface area to the air.
Correct. You have three sides to protect it when it goes into its heat.
Right. So I wouldn't pour a slab unless I just had to in the wintertime. But and on the cold days is what I mean.
You have to cover them.
Yeah. Well, Randy, hopefully that was some fun stuff. Again, you're over at the VFW until 11 o'clock, so people should get on over there and get a good breakfast from the VFW, talk to you about the bricks while we're over there, and go from there. Yeah, and don't forget the dinner this month is flounder and oysters. So. Love it. What's the date on that?
17th, I believe.
Okay. Sounds good. We got a couple of weeks.
The 17th is third Saturday. So
nice.
We'd like for everybody to come out. I mean, last fish fry we sold out, and then we always get asked to have oysters.
Love it.
So we're going to have those.
All right, Randy. We'll hold down the fort at the VFW, and we'll talk to you next time. Sound good? All right.
Sir.
Take it easy, man. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the podcast edition of All About Home Construction. We want to thank Skipper, Dave, and Bill for supporting the show. If you're enjoying this episode and you want to help us by creating some more awesome content, there are a few ways you can show your support. Subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. This actually helps us reach new listeners and climb the charts. And please share this episode with your friends and family. Word of mouth is always the best kind of advertising. You can support us directly through our page on Spotify. The links are in the show notes. Thanks for listening to us.